Okay, thanks and welcome back. And now I have another special guest here, Dr. Jonah Yakel. Dr. Jonah Yakel is a functional medicine practitioner, chiropractor who consults with people around the world via webcam. He focuses on discovering the underlying cause of chronic disease and creating personalized health programs for chronic inflammatory response syndrome, mold, brain health, inflammation, blood sugar problems, and weight loss. Dr. Yakel lives in Scottsdale, Arizona with his wife and his two children. Dr. Yakel, thank you and welcome.
Hey, thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me on. It's an honor.
Oh well, thank you. Yeah, this has been a great event. We're really raising the vibration and helping a lot of people with just great information on just health and wellness in all areas. And so again, I'm just really honored to have you on here. So my first question that I love to ask is, how did you get involved in functional medicine? I know you're a chiropractor, but you're now really focused on functional medicine. How did that all evolve for you?
Yeah, you know what? It's been quite an evolution. And I think it really just begins with I see functional, people ask all the time, well, what the heck is functional medicine? And, in its essence, it's really all about just getting to the root cause of what's making people sick. And with my background as a chiropractor, I think I'm uniquely situated into a position where not only are we getting to the root cause, but we're providing people with natural strategies for restoring their health, as opposed again to, focusing on pharmaceuticals and, surgical interventions. It's like, how do we make changes to our lifestyle and to what we're eating and supplementation and things of that nature to actually transform our health. And, but beyond it being, in my mind, really the future of healthcare, for me, it's a lifestyle. It's a way of living and, navigating through our everyday life. So it's more than healthcare. And so for me, I feel like, it's like I've been living this way for, over 20 years at this point. My wife and my kids, like it truly is a lifestyle. And I think that that's really what self-care is all about. It's not about what do I do when I get sick. It's, how are we preventing ourselves from getting sick? How are we taking care of ourselves? And, Scott, as you know, but, most of our listeners don't, I have quite the health history. So in some ways, I was kind of pushed into this profession. Granted, I was already in a situation that made it easy, but a decade ago, I was in an incredibly severe car accident. I had over 30 fractures. I had severe, internal damage. Both lungs collapsed. My liver was damaged. My diaphragm was torn into pieces. My left leg was shattered. I've got a metal rod in there. And the honest truth is I'm a walking miracle, is the
Absolutely.
reality to that. And I honestly, it's like I have to credit the lifestyle to my recovery. And for me, again, it's understanding that if I'm going to live my optimal life, like if I'm going to reach peak states and fulfill my purpose on this planet, it's like I have to learn how to manage inflammation. Because if I get inflamed even a slight bit with, a history of over 30 plus fractures, like it can take me out.
Wow.
So for me, after that accident, like emerging out of that, and again, my recovery was nothing short of a miracle. It's like, I spent a month in ICU, by the way, but it's like I spent a week in rehab after that. And, I was off a walker, I was off all pain meds within like about 4 to 6 weeks. I was actually back in the office adjusting people within about 3 months or so, maybe it's four
Wow.
months, which is completely insane, when you
Yeah.
go back and look at the severity of it. So, for me, it's like it was driven. It's like my own personal passion. It's like, how do I keep getting better? How do I make my body healthier? How do I make my brain healthier? And, for me, it was just then bringing that knowledge, what I'd learned for myself, into my practice and giving those strategies and those tools to other people. And then of course, later what emerged out of that, several years later, this was probably 3 or 4 years ago now, but I started noticing some significant changes in brain health. So even though I was at the top of my game, my practice is booming. I've got, a full schedule, every day. I'm married. I've got two kids in school. It's like my life was incredibly full. And at this point, I'm actually not only teaching chiropractic, but I'm, across the world, I'm literally teaching other doctors how to integrate functional medicine into their practices. And it's just like, so I'm presenting, I'm giving speeches, teaching, and I started noticing like I was getting brain foggy, and like word recall was starting to get more challenging. I started to get incredibly fatigued. Um, like the day to day, like my body was starting to hurt more and
Huh.
more. I was starting to slur my speech. My short term memory was
Wow.
going more and more every day. Like I was kind of crashing, and then I started getting like numbness and tingling in my fingers and my hands and my face. And, it's like I had no idea what the world was going on. And mind you, I'm working with functional medicine doctors all over, like some of the best in the country, quite frankly. And like no one could figure it out. Like at one point, it's like, do I have MS? It's like, what in the
Yeah.
world is possibly going on? And again, functional medicine saved the day ultimately by somewhat of a, divine intervention. We discovered that it was mold. Like I was living in a moldy environment. And furthermore, there's a significant, genetic correlation to be, for people who can detox mold versus those who cannot.
Okay.
But, it's believed to have started with an inflammatory condition from my car accident. And then it just rolled over. Something that had never really been a problem for me now was suddenly a really big problem.
And
So,
that, how many years was
I
that?
then, what's that?
Wasn't that like multiple years, like from
Oh yeah.
the
I mean, it
car
was probably
accident?
5, 6 years after the accident before I started
Okay.
noticing the neurological changes in my life. And I mean, I'm telling you, there's like, I can't really, yeah, so maybe some of the viewers can relate with this, but I mean, when I was at my worst, it's like I was exhausted 24/7. I was stuck in chronic fatigue. Like I would sleep for 12, 14 hours and I'd wake up. All I could think about was when is it time to go back to bed? And then my executive functioning like got worse and worse, like having a hard time processing, learning new information. Like I really was in a very, very profound state. I was very sick. At one point, we went so far to get an MRI, and I was actually showing, atrophy changes to my brain in about five different areas. And again, I was incredibly blessed to be put on this path. I crossed paths with Dr. Richie Shoemaker, who's kind of like the man when it comes to mold. He kind of put the recovery on the map. And I mean, I've since made a full recovery, including follow-up MRI showing that my brain is completely healed and repaired. And
Wow.
that's kind of really where I'm at this point. I'm now certified in shoemaker work. I primarily work with people with inflammatory conditions. It's like, man, I know how to how to master inflammation. I help people who are struggling with brain health. And then of course mold. And so for me, it's like, functional medicine is just integrating strategies that are going to keep us healthy. And of course, help us get to the root cause of what's making us sick. But so for me, there's not a big leap between what I do as a profession and how I live my
Yeah.
life, and that's kind of really how I ended up here.
Yeah. A couple of things brought to mind there. One, how similar your story is to one of my, like, I read all of his book, Dr. Joe Dispenza, who has a very similar story where he got in his bicycle accident and fractured all his vertebrae, and he was a chiropractor, and he was able to heal himself primarily through the mind. But then, of course, after he got out, but he just mind over matter, and he does some really incredible visualization work on healing. But it's so interesting. The same thing, with you is the fact. Now, I have another question. Were you before your accident? You were a chiropractor, so you were living a pretty healthy life even before that, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, I had been a chiro. I graduated in 2006, so I've been in practice for 14 years at this point. And yeah, so I mean, I was my accident. In fact, we're coming up on the 11-year anniversary. So it was May 15th of 2009. So I mean, I've been
Okay.
living this lifestyle for 6 years.
Yeah.
And again, I feel like it completely saved me. The honest truth is, I I really can't overstate the miracle of me still being on this planet, which I think just to some degree is like, it just wasn't my time yet. Like I had more to share and to bring into the world. And, but it's like we saw people, or I didn't see them. I was on 4 chest tubes. I was intubated. Like I was completely out for 3.5 weeks. I have no recollection of any of it. Still don't remember the accident itself, but someone had stolen a car and T-boned me. But yeah, it's like I was living that lifestyle. And I think, again, it really gave me a huge advantage in my recovery.
Yeah, and that's what's so interesting because in my personal case, not really like that, but my body gave out. It's almost as if I wasn't living a healthy lifestyle and wasn't paying attention to stress, really. And that was the biggest thing I realized. But then my body just, said, hey, you need to wake up and pay attention, take care of me. And it just sort of shut down. I just had severe stomach pain, severe back pain. Um, and I went to a lot of doctors, and they really couldn't find anything really wrong with me, really specifically wrong. And at that point is when I started my journey on just de-stressing and trying to live a better lifestyle. And so I just think the body is, obviously in your case, a miracle. In my case, it saved my life because it alerted me, said, hey, wake up, pay attention. And I think that's the key, is that if whatever happens, whether we, cause our own problems or we get in a car wreck or whatever, it's that we have the power within ourselves to heal ourselves and to take it seriously and know the power of the healing body, right?
Oh, and this is really what drew me to chiropractic in the first place, was the philosophy. The chiropractic motto is the power that made the body heals the body. Like, our body is brilliant. Our body wants to heal. Like, it yearns for health. It yearns for balance. Like, it's what it knows. It's what it desires. And, our choices in our life, our environment, what we're eating, if we're sleeping or not, are we exercising? It's like, these have ramifications literally at the genetic level. So it's, really it's about creating the space for the body to heal and repair. And this is just one of my favorite things. It's like, over the years, I've seen countless miracles in my practice working with
Yeah.
people of healing and recovering. But the honest truth is, I don't think they're miracles at all. It's just really what the body does when the
Yeah.
space is provided for it to heal.
Yeah.
It's not a miracle. It's natural. Like, this is what happens. This is what our body was meant and designed to do. If we remove what's making us sick in the first place, the body will heal. And of course, that can be physical, it can be mental, it can be emotional. You could argue it could be spiritual, the root cause. But again, that's the whole essence of functional medicine, is really getting to that root cause. Like, what is it? What is that obstacle that's preventing our body from fulfilling its potential and healing?
Yeah, and that's what really this whole summit's about. And you just said it. It's really all the modalities, and that's why I really wanted to call it, mind body health and wellness. Very wide open term, but that's what's key, because we're all going to hit it at different levels. And we really talked about amazing modalities and just great stories from a lot of healers like yourself, who all have a unique story, but it really comes down to that part of the miracle of the body. Get out of its way, let it heal. So you've really already dropped a bunch of gems here, but one last thing I just want to leave, just maybe you can add one more in there, is this. Again, the reason I also wanted to pull this together was, as we're coming out of this lockdown, this pandemic, and I know for myself, I wasn't in the healthiest shape that I had been, and I was thinking, now as we're emerging, and we're coming into spring or summer, or just emerging out of this pandemic, how can we be healthier? What is maybe one tip or piece of information you can give our audience, that as we're emerging, how can we be healthier?
That is such a great question. And, Scott, I'm going to point out a gem that I think that you just shared, that may have easily gone under the radar. But when you were talking about your story and stress, and that your body was giving you signals, this is it. It's like, we need to recognize that our body is brilliant, that symptoms are not just like a meaningless, act of suffering, or a body that's breaking down. Like, if my check engine light goes on, it's like, this is our body informing us that something, when we're doing in our life, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, is not working for us. So it is like, our own system will tell us if our life is working or not. And it gives us the opportunity, if we want to grow and evolve, it gives us the opportunity to make change that's actually going to allow us to evolve and to move beyond whatever it is that's keeping us stuck. And I think that just rolls right into answering your question, is
Yeah.
how can we look at this crisis as information? Like, what is being told? And I would say that my mantra now is the same my mantra was a year ago when this hit, versus 6 months ago when things were kind of drooping, but then we kind of got a second wind right before the holidays.
Yeah.
This is a scream for us to move into self-care, like move into a proactive state. We now know, but we knew this early on, that nearly 90% of the deaths from COVID are associated with comorbidities, diabetes, overweight, heart disease, like people who are already primed, elderly, people with low functioning immune systems. So the real question is if we were healthy as a culture, as a society, as a world, if we all invested in our own self-care and made it our number one value, how would we be looking at this crisis different? Would it have even turned into a crisis? So instead of taking that defensive posture of, and again, it's like we can do both of these things, but defensive posture is let's stay home, let's wear masks, let's get vaccinated, and let's be proactive. Let's take care of ourselves. Like, what are we doing to better ourselves? How are we changing our diet? How are we getting up and moving and exercising? How are we making sure we're getting adequate amounts of sleep? And personally, I think it really kind of comes down to a sense of self-love. Like, are we loving ourselves enough to take care of ourselves in a way that's going to allow our immune system to function at an optimal, rate? And the unfortunate reality is we don't know what's going to happen. Like, is this the first of many pandemics? Like, who knows? But so how do we stack the deck in our favor? How do we make sure that we're healthy? What are you doing today that will, make you a different person, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months from today? So that, again, when this thing comes through, or if something like this were to ever happen again, it's like we're prepared. I told people that the very first, when this first hit, it's like I did a webinar. I told my clients, it's like, look, we've been training for this. We're
Yeah.
ready. We've been training. Like, we've been eating right. We've been supplementing. We've been doing everything we can, which of course isn't a guarantee. But how can we love ourselves more? How can we take care of ourselves more? I think the world is crying that we have a global health crisis, and I think this pandemic just brought it to the surface.
Wow. Perfect. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And really speaking my language when we start talking about how, loving ourselves, and it goes beyond just, do I feel good about myself, but does my body feel good about myself too? And it all goes together. Just great, great news. I always say, one of the pandemics, like people say, well, I can't wait to get back, to the way it was. And I'm like, tell you what, let's get better than the way it was. Let's
Yeah.
move forward better than it ever was before, and certainly
Yeah.
with our health and wellness and just awareness to that. So great,
Amen.
great.
And you could argue that the way it was before is what created the environment for this to happen in the first place. We don't want to
Yeah,
go back. We can't go back. We need to do
yeah,
better. You nailed it.
yeah. So we're going to emerge 2021. So Dr. Yakel, thank you so much. This has been wonderful, great, great information, and I'm so thankful that you were able to spend some time with us today. So thank you.
Hey, thanks, Scott. It's been a pleasure both seeing you and being able to share with our audience today. And yeah, I look forward to connecting with people in the future.
Nice. Thank you. All right. We'll see you.
All right.